This tale about Atlantis, though strange, is certainly true, having been attested by Solon, who was the wisest of the 7 sages.
Where would one find such a mighty structure? Surely if it was as large as Plato had mentioned, it should be easy enough to find, unless it had sunken beneath the ocean, as legend suggests. I needed to look a little deeper, or higher for that matter. Since man launched into space, we've been able to observe the Earth from higher than ever before, seeing all formations on our planet's surface from a completely new perspective. With all the facts before me, I came across something astonishing. During earlier space missions, an exceptional structure was spotted in a forgotten corner of the Sahara Desert, a place that has puzzled scientists and geologists ever since its discovery. It is called the Richat, the Eye of Africa, a very unique formation which raises many questions. From space, the Richat is easily visible. Its prominent bullseye shape stands out in a circular form from an otherwise featureless Saharan desert. Because of its contours, it was dubbed the Eye of Africa. It stretches about 50 kilometers across, while the ring structure spans over 23 kilometers. Surprisingly, it has an almost perfect symmetry. Ground observations could not provide consensus amongst researchers about the origins of the magnificent structure. Some scientists thought it was a massive impact crater, but the lack of shock-altered rock questions that theory. Others propose that it was formed by volcanic activity, like a volcano before eruption that ran out of energy and collapsed into itself. The debate of its formation rages on. One thing is clear, the place has been severely eroded and washed out. Interesting for one of the driest places on Earth.
What the Richat is, or how it was formed, is a riddle. Its symmetry makes it look almost like a man-made structure. But for George and I, the fascination lies in how closely the Richat resembles the circular layout of Plato's Atlantis.
I took the shape of Atlantis, as Plato had described, and placed it beside the Eye of Africa. The match is very close. Many people have searched for the origins of Atlantis under the waves of the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, and even the South China Seas. But suddenly here I was, confronted with the possibility that the remains of the ocean empire are hidden in the Saharan desert, in the remote country of Mauritania. Mauritania is situated in West Africa, south of Morocco, bordered by the Atlantic Ocean, Senegal, Mali, and Algeria. The climate is mostly hot and arid. Approximately 3/4 of the country is desert or semi-desert, and as a result of severe drought, the desert has been expanding. I had to see the Richat structure for myself, and I convinced Natalis to join me on a fact-finding mission to Mauritania. For us, a journey into the unknown. To reach the Richat is not that easy. Our journey would take us from Paris to Nouakchott by plane, and then we would travel by car from Nouakchott to the Richat.
Mauritania is about the same size as Egypt. While Egypt has a population of about 78 million people, Mauritania is home to only 3 million people. The Islamic population speaks French and Arabic.
قد ذكرتك والرمال
One can't get very far on English alone.
مني وبيض الهند تقطر.
Mauritanians are proud to preserve their Islamic traditions and culture. The shoreline is bustling with fishermen, living as their ancestors did thousands of years ago. Mauritania's coastal waters are amongst the richest fishing areas in the world. About 5 kilometers inland from today's coastline lies Mauritania's biggest city, called Nouakchott. The name means place of the wind.
As one walks around the city, it becomes evident that the ocean played a major role in the growth of this place. Everywhere you look or walk are seashells, the pavements, the walkways, even embedded in the tar, almost as if the whole city had been built upon seashells. On our road journey from the sea towards the Richat, we decided to look out for evidence that would link the area to Plato's description of Atlantis. If we were on the right track, then 12,000 years ago, this whole area should have been underwater. As we travelled northeast towards the Adra Highlands, it seemed we could not escape the ocean. Miles away from the sea, littered endlessly on the sand were shells, undamaged, perfectly preserved. There are other signs that this desert floor was once the ocean bed, from boats beached miles from the water and entire whale skeletons emerging from the desert sand. Perhaps the sand of the Sahara moved into the water, pushing into the Atlantic, or the land has been rising, maybe the ocean level has been dropping, most likely a combination of factors.
One can imagine that the sea was here not too long ago.
From the desert plain, we travelled to the small city of Attar, which lies at the feet of the Adra Highlands. The grand sweeping mountain range rises from the flat desert, just as Plato described the main island of Atlantis.
The whole island of Atlantis was said to be towering and steep towards the side of the sea.
The seashells, erosion patterns, and geological formations indicate that the sea may have once washed up against the cliffs of the Adra Highlands. In the area of Attar, at the foothills of the Adra Highlands, all the wells produce salt water. That seems extremely odd, since we are 400 kilometers away from the ocean. You would have to dig up to 200 meters deep to find fresh water. From Attar, we made our way up the mountains, which Plato describes as follows.
The mountains of the island of Atlantis were celebrated for their number and size and beauty.
We agree with Plato. The mountain scenery is fantastic. What would await us once we had climbed the mountains?
We knew from Plato's writings that this scenery had to change dramatically if we were on the right track. According to him, we were supposed to reach a huge level plain. After making our way up the mountains onto the ridge, to our amazement, we encountered a vast and nearly endless plain.
The plain was smooth and even.
George and I drove over 4 hours on this never-ending plain, heading for our final destination, which might have been the capital city of Atlantis.
Plato again gives us guidance. According to his measurements, the capital city was enormous,